Now, as we continue the coverage of the election in the 3 states across Nigeria, we're now being joined here in the Lagos studio by an astute political analyst. That's Dr. Victor Okhai. It's great to have you with us, Doctor. Warm welcome.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Right. Now, let's get straight into the pressing issues as of the top of this hour. INEC, of course, recognizing the allegations. Of course, there have been public outcries about purported filled-out result sheets that have been discovered in some polling units in Kogi State. Of course, circulating on social media, also videos of the PDP candidate in Kogi State, Senator Dino Molaye, also speaking to this discovery. He has other ways that he'd like people to deal with it, but that's not the focus. Filled out result sheets. Where do we go from here?
Well, the political class, unfortunately, in this country, would always do whatever it takes to win. And what you've seen here is not this is something that's been happening. But what's new is the fact that this has come out. It has been brought to the light, thanks to the media as well. Obviously, you and I would probably not have heard about it, or if it had not been escalated. And then the fact that INEC has owned up to it, unlike what used to happen in the past, where they would live in denial, and it would seem like it's an indictment on them. So we'll have to wait and see, but this is something that's always happened. It's unfortunate. Politicians are desperate and will do anything to win elections. But I'm glad that this has come to light and that INEC has taken charge of the situation. We'll have to see how they deliver on it. I think that's what's most important right now.
All right. So, remember I mentioned Senator Dino Molaye.
Yes.
And the ongoing situation in not just Ahitoro Gbede, but in Kogi State, and its own perspective towards this. Yes. What do you make of it, and what he is saying right now, and also his actions?
Well, first of all, if you look at Kogi, is a very peculiar case, and obviously, I think he's alleging that this is from the opposition. The what do you call it now? The results that have come out. If you notice what happened with Natasha, you would see that Kogi has, at least in the last 7 to 8 years, been like a battleground. And I don't know if the reports are here on this station as well, but what's his name now? Senator Dino Molaye has been hesitant about even going. Up until the last report I got, he had not shown up to vote yet.
Yes, that's the situation.
Yes. And the reason for that is the desperation that is in that state. You know, there's security threats. There's so much. It's like there's no incumbent, you know, but you might say there's an incumbent party, you know, and you find a situation where certain people, without going to mentioning names here, feel that, you know, things must remain or must go their way. And Dino is being very careful, but as you know, Dino is not a quiet person. He would shout and scream to the highest heavens. And I think that we're also hearing about this because of the nature of who Dino is. And because of the nature of Dino and the kind of politician that he is, this will not go down quietly. We will not stop hearing about it until they get to the very roots. But I'm hoping that the results that come out at the end of the day truly reflect what the situation is on ground. That we'll have to wait and see. And I'm hoping that not just Dino, but all the opposition and every other candidate, they get adequate security. So, and the citizens as well. You notice there's voter apathy.
Yeah. It's
something we'll be talking about later. But it's when you find a situation where there's so much threat and so much violence, voters would rather keep their lives than go and risk it trying to vote, even if they feel there must be a change. They would rather sit at home. And so voter apathy is as a result of all of these threats and all of these violence that we see. Kogi is particularly notorious for that, has been and still is.
Now, how do we correct this without disenfranchising voters? Because it's been discovered, which of course we say kudos for that. However, unfortunately, it has already set us back. This discovery means one of two things will happen. Some people will return to those polling units and exercise their civic duty again, and others will be discouraged from participating in this process again. What are the corrective measures in this particular instance that can ensure that what we end up with at the end of the day is truly a reflection of people's desires?
Well, the most important thing is what has been done now. You know, it's usually say, if you see something, say something. And that has happened. I'm not sure how it came to light originally, but obviously someone saw something and said something, and so the rest of us have heard about it. And I think that culture should be encouraged. Everyone who has a good conscience should, if they see something, should say something. But we have said that electronic voting is, what do you call it now, next to impossible in this country, because we feel that even that system can be corrupted. But I think that that is one way to discourage it. I don't think that we are incapable of doing electronic voting. If people can conduct businesses with POS, you know, at all levels, if people can do transactions on their phones, people that you would ordinarily think are not very literate are able to do transfers and all of that, I think that we are of age, and electronic voting with all of the security devices, if we're truly, because of course it's garbage in, garbage out. If there's no sincerity in the process, it can be corrupted. But if we truly want to do all this, I think that if we go the electronic voting way, a lot of this would be taken care of.
All right, we are hoping so.
Yes.
But more importantly, because look at this from this angle. Earlier in the day, we had former President Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan speak, and he was very, very concerned about off-cycle elections and how it's disrupting the entire political and democratic system here in Nigeria. And issues like this tend to breed off-cycle elections ultimately. And he has spoken to that. And we are saying, and people are worried that the courts, the tribunals are determining who becomes elected into political offices, not the electorate. How do we address this issue? Or will this remain with us as something that has gone beyond us?
Okay, so two things. First of all, off-cycle elections, I think, is an issue that has been indirectly dealt with. Let me explain that now.
Okay.
Because in the new electoral law, obviously, there is a time within which to determine cases. So it's not like you're going to get spillovers, except if, of course, nobody, I mean, even if somebody dies in office, it's automatic someone else, the deputy takes over if it's a candidate and all that. So I don't think that's an issue. So with the time now that has been prescribed, it should hopefully take care of some of these problems, except other things happen along the way. But the problem with mid-cycle or off-cycle, elections is first is voter apathy. Because when you have the general elections with everyone else, the presidential election tends to generate a lot of interest. So you find a lot of people coming out to vote, and that momentum, trickles down to the other elections during that period. And when it's off cycle, people are not as interested. It's like running local government elections. I don't know if it's right to ask you, but have you ever voted in a local government election? I know I haven't. So when it comes, the lower it gets, the less interested people are in such elections, and sometimes even up to governorship elections. So two things tend to happen. Voter apathy is one. Two, when that happens, the entire machinery of the party at all levels across the country tend to descend into that, locality where that off-season or off-cycle election is taking place. And then it's like a big prize. Everyone wants to take that prize. Whereas ordinarily, what would have happened in a general election is that everyone is busy, concerned with their constituencies. Their immediate priority at the time is to deliver on their constituencies, and so they mind their business, they remain in their states. But off-cycle, you find people descending on states that are not theirs. We've seen cases before where thugs are imported from other states. You know what I mean? They go to those states and they unleash, and they can do that and get away because they are not locals. They just come in there and do all sorts of things and get away. That's one of the other dangers of off-cycle elections. But it has come to be, and is unfortunate. Our judiciary, consciously or unconsciously, have allowed themselves to be used by politicians, which is why you have politicians confidently saying, go to court, And the joke is usually said that when a man tells you go to court, then obviously it means that he has the judge is,
Probably, let me correct that impression.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
When the independent body
Yes.
that is to oversee election is telling you go to court, shouldn't that be very, very troubling to you as a political actor?
I understand that it can be, but at that point, if we're to look at it objectively, not necessarily because of where it's coming from, what's the alternative? It's violence. Otherwise, go to court. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I understand it can come from a place of mischief, which means that, and we have seen cases where electoral officers, we saw what nearly happened in, was it Taraba or Adamawa? I can't remember the state now. Taraba, where the lady, Binani or so? Adamawa, one of those states anyway. But we know the case.
Yes.
Where an electoral officer was hell-bent on declaring, results that had not yet been. I mean, when you see a situation like that, obviously the next line will be, if you don't like it, go to court.
True.
So there is a human element there. There are individuals, corrupt individuals within the system who are used by politicians. And so I would not want to say INEC as a body, but if you're in INEC, obviously when you speak, you represent INEC at that point in time. It's troubling. So the politicians do it. They connive with the electoral bodies where they can, to make sure that they're declared. I was in a conversation with a couple of friends a few days ago, and the joke was that, we're talking about all the huge sums that they're allocating to themselves, and the joke was, look, enter by whatever means necessary, and then within the first 1 or 2 months, before the case is decided, you would have been sorted, and nobody is asking for a refund for whatever is given to you. If you're given allocation, whether it's 100 million, 200 million, you take it and you walk away. You know what I mean? So, and when you find a situation like that, politicians will be desperate because there are no consequences for such behavior, whether bad behavior or whatever. So when you find situations like that, then people will do whatever it takes. And then they can say to the electoral officer, look, my friend, I'll give you this sum. It doesn't matter whether or not. Let him go to court, but just declare me the winner first. And then we'll see what happens. And that's what we see. It's not necessarily as a result of off-cycle elections. It's something that happens during all of the elections.
Okay.
Now, when we look at some of the events that transpired on the 25th of February and we consider the law of unintended consequences, I'm just flashing back to to Emekuku, that we crossed over to an Imo state, where the report from Charles was that, we have a great turnout now. However, people came later in the day. And of course, that can speak directly to the fact that when we think back to February, more often than not, in most places, the voting materials arrived late or the staff arrived late. Things didn't begin in a timely process. Now, that's just one example or one aspect. How much of a reflection of unintended consequences do you think this off-cycle election is, as a as a reflection or as a spill-off of what we saw on the 25th of February?
Well, maybe what I would like to say is sometimes and I've expressed that a couple of times, I'm not very happy with what the excuses that we get from INEC. Even during the general elections, they have been doing this consistently now for 20-something years, 20-some years. And so they have had time over and over to perfect their systems, This would be a case of logistics, for instance. But I also know that there are certain logistic providers that they have worked with consistently over the years. And they know the terrain. So it's not like something new or whatever. So the excuse sometimes they would give for bringing materials in late, or in some cases you find situations where they don't even arrive until when it's too late to vote on that day, and then you talk about voting till the next day. I mean, these excuses are to be totally untenable. So and again, I keep talking about consequences for bad behaviors or bad behavior. There's no reason for INEC, whose votes are hardly questioned, as you know, whatever they ask for, they would get, because everyone wants elections to go very well. The National Assembly, the executive, and all that. So you get everything you want ahead of everybody else. You have time to plan. And then the question is, why do these things happen all the time?
Because Frank Tiete,
yes.
Our correspondent in Abuja, had a very interesting theory to that.
Okay.
By saying that some people revel in the entire chaos that is what we see with elections in Nigeria. It actually favors some people that things do not go seamless. Things are not smooth. Things don't run on rails. Things are not structured properly. And probably, maybe the political class or some other actors within the whole political system tend to benefit more from this chaos. So how do you now, who now puts the check on the electoral process if they actually do this?
And sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you, Dr. Okhai, because we've also have joining us for this analysis from the Abuja studio is a member of the Situation Room and the Executive Director at the Emma Ezeazu Center for Good Governance and Accountability, Mma Odi. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not sure if you heard Aaron's question. Maybe we can start with you so we can bring you into this conversation. Aaron, would you just like to buttress your point one more time?
Yes, I was trying to establish the entirety or the culpability of INEC in these off-season elections and even the general elections, and the chaos that seems to ensue before, during, and after elections, making reference to what is happening in Kogi State, whereby we are hearing that forms are being filled even before votes are being cast.
Okay, I think INEC have not learned anything. And we were thinking that INEC would have learned a lot of lessons from year 2023 general elections. I think what we see is poor preparation and also culpability of INEC. If we want to look at what is going on actually even in Imo State and Kogi State and Bayelsa State. So now we shouted that the wreck of Imo State is the sister of the Deputy National President of APC. No, INEC didn't listen to us. Means he doesn't even concern about what the citizens said. So, and they went to election with the direct sister of the APC, political party, an interested party in the election, his sister, as a wreck of Imo State. And also you see that in Kogi, the result sheet had already been filled. In Bayelsa State, many places, it's just out, it's John Hutch, Blouse, Opia. You see, according to the reports, security men escorting talks to go and be carrying INEC materials and results. And the people are protesting. We can't vote if we do not see the result sheet. In many places, many people didn't even bother to come out. For example, in Imo State, because they have lost faith in the umpire. They have lost faith that the INEC will do well. And this is an opportunity for INEC to have proof that we can get it right. And unfortunately, what we are hearing is the opposite. And it's very sad and tragic because Nigerians deserve a better option. People have lost hope, and the losing of hope is deeper. And you can't come and say the situation where you don't want to agree the situation is not hopeless. Actually, the situation is very hopeless. And we need to start thinking of how to ensure the citizen is the only, and God is the only hope of these elections. Because election is becoming useless and meaningless. When people actually predict the outcome, we won't vote, we won't come out to vote because we know they are going to rig this election. That's what the people are saying. And INEC is not helping us to say no. We are actually telling people, come out and vote. And watch your vote, defend your vote. Make sure that your preferences reflect in the announced result. And make sure that the vote you cast also is protected. But people don't want to come out because they say INEC had already decided whom to give the result. So how can we make the people to have hope that INEC can do things differently? That's the question we are asking. And also the citizens have to start saying, yes, we can make INEC to work for Nigeria because INEC is working for few invested interests, not Nigeria. Well, and the security people are also not exempted.
For now, we just need to cross live to Ida, Kogi State, where Arise senior correspondent Omar Bazuaye is standing by. Good day, Omar. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you give us an update on the status of things in Ida, Kogi State?
Yes, I've spent a couple of hours here in Ida, but before moving to Igala Mela, where I also observed the election process there. It's been very smooth, and election is going on smoothly as well in Igala Mela. There is no trouble whatsoever. But at some point, we heard that there were some issues with maybe one former House of Rep member trying to, engage in vote buying, but the people, rally around themselves and they stopped him from actually having the opportunity of buying the votes. And then some security officers also came around. But I have left Igala Mala right now, and I'm back at a place called Bishop Road in Ida, and you can see from the back, directly from my back, you can see that the election process is still going on. People are still voting, and they have turned out here in their large numbers, mostly women and children. Many of them have told me that whether come rain or shine, they will remain here. They will ensure that they participate in this election, that they will want to make sure that they make a statement out of what is going on. Their state, Kogi State, is in a very dear situation at the moment, ranked as the 23rd state on human capital development. And so they are hoping that this particular election would enable them to transform their lives, into a better one. So that's why you see them. They are still there. Many of them, I understand, got to that polling unit from around 6 o'clock. Even though some of them had voted, but they are standing, waiting to ensure that the votes are counted right in their presence. We haven't seen much of any form of skirmishes in Ida, really. We all know that the Kogi State as a whole has a very strong, wild history of violence. But in and around the places I have been to, between Ida and then Igala Mala and some other, local government around, we haven't seen that much of, situations that one could say has marred the election in whatever way.
All right, Omar, like you've just mentioned, the turnout in the Eastern Senatorial District of Kogi State is quite impressive, as against what we've seen in the Western Senatorial District, or maybe even in Kogi Central. Is it because they are probably hoping that SDP might take the day and have their own son, the Igala, an Igala rather, return back to the Lugard House in Lokoja?
You know that is one factor that is one of the things that shape elections in this country. Even as hard as I hate to want to admit the fact, but the sentiment is always ever strong. And unfortunately, this time around, the election that we are seeing in Kogi with the three leading candidates seem to have divided the state along a senatorial path. And if you like, that ethnic dimension where the Kogi East is the stronghold of the Igala people, and a whole lot of them are rooting for their son. They have been out of power for a while. And if you talk about the contestation for power in Kogi State, because Kogi East has 9 out of the 21 local government areas of the state. So all of the attention of people, and people say it is the place where elections are either won or lost. In fact, I'm told that there's a particular local government, Dekina, that particular local government in Kogi East has the capacity of wiping out votes from maybe the remaining other sections of the state, talking about maybe whether it's South Kogi Central or Kogi West. And so that the sentiment is there, it is strong. The people of Kogi East, for a while in the last 8 years, believe that it's been a while that they had their hands on power, and so they seem to want it back. And the mobilization is the feeling that I'm feeling here, I'm getting here in Ida, is that they are rooting all the way and making sure that they vote in one direction, and for their son, which is the candidate of the SDP, Murtala Ajaka. But that is not to say that the Kogi East doesn't have strong opposition. They have strong opposition in the APC here. I know for sure that the senator representing this side of the country, for example, is from this side of the state. And I also know that they have ministers and strong, high-powered people in structure as well of APC right here in Kogi East. So it's an early period for us to make any strong calls. But the fact of the matter is that the sentiment is always there. It has always been one of those factors that shape elections, in addition to the factor of money and some other factors of ethnicity and religion. It's there, and I can feel it about this time around.
Thank you so much, Omo Bazuaye, for that update from Ida in Kogi State. Now, just as you made reference to SDP candidate Murtala Ajaka, let's take a look at what he had to say after casting his vote earlier in the day.
We thank God for this day. From what we are seeing, it is clear that I am the one that have the majority. But the report I'm getting from Okhai, Adavi, we're very forwarded to Abuja. We are seeing they have not seen the original result sheet in Okhai and Adavi. And I hope the INEC chairman is updated with this, because there is no way they will do. We are going into an election. The original result sheet is not there. That's not the guideline.
So are you happy with the conduct of the election in this?
We are happy with everything INEC have done so far. But what we are saying, the original result sheet in Okhai and Adavi, they are all missing. So, and I hope INEC chairman will take note of this. The result sheet in Okhai, Adavi are all missing, and they are busy somewhere writing those results now as we are talking.
So your final assessment of the
everything about INEC arrangement is perfect, but there are men in Okhai, Adavi, and Okhai. They have compromised. They should question the returning officers in these 3 local governments that I've mentioned. Apart from that, every other arrangement from INEC is 100%.
How important is this election to you? How important is it to you?
This election is about the liberation of the people of Kogi State. That is what it is. is about the liberation of the people of Kogi State.
Do you think you're going to win this election?
Certainly, I have the number. I have the people.
All right, let's return to our conversation with Imma Odi, who is joining us from our Abuja studio. Now, we've just heard that situation report from Kogi State, and no surprises to you, I'm sure. But let's look at this issue of the pre-recorded result sheets that seem to not be causing any hindrance to voters in other areas of the state who are still coming out in their numbers and are still committed to this process. How do we balance things out on voting day when these negative reports go out? How do we stop them? How do we ensure that they don't stop other potential voters?
Okay, I think the good thing about the pre-filled result sheet is that the police apprehended the culprits, and also INEC has issued a statement that is going to be investigated. Though it's a very tragic and sad situation, that in the first place, somebody will sit down and actually fill the result sheet for polling units that election has not taken place, which means INEC didn't do enough due diligence on all the staff. And people have been shouting that there's some INEC staff have compromised in Kogi State over 3 weeks ago. And INEC didn't deem fit to take action on it. And it has manifested today that result sheet had already been filled, and they are going to do investigation and take actions when necessary. It is sad. It's very sad. And I think they should actually do the investigation and tell us what will happen, because the people are still refusing to vote, to cast their votes. And I hope it will not discourage others in neighboring polling units, because they will also lose faith in INEC. So I think the people generally are the ones deciding what is going on today. They kudos go to the citizens. Those who have faith that they want to see something happen, change the situation of their states, are the ones who are coming out, praying to God probably that INEC will not change what they have voted for. And also the security personnel will not compromise. It is just expectation and hope that is making people to come out, because there is no valid fact data they can hold on INEC and say, can beat their chest and say, yes, we trust the umpire to do the right thing. Because the science coming out now does not support that expectation. But one thing I know for sure, but the people are still hoping. Nigerians hope against hope. And we are praying to God that at least INEC should allow the people's votes to count, and people's preferences will determine the result that will be announced late today or tomorrow, that the people should not be shortchanged. And all it's the same. And all the people carrying those places, they are carrying INEC materials in Bayelsa. INEC should do what they have promised to do, that the result on those polling units and wards should not count.
All right. Before I come to Victor here in the studio, Umar, I would like to hear from you, because you've just given a scathing remarks on INEC. Does this justify Dino's claims and what he has been saying on social media?
No, I actually do not support. I think Dino should have actually gone ahead to vote, and also raise his concerns. I say these are the things I observed, like the SDP candidate said. He said the good things about what INEC has done. He also said some INEC personnel have compromised. It is wrong to condemn everything, because we know for sure there are so many places INEC materials arrived on time and personnel, and the opening of votes started on time. So you can't just come and be shouting on social media. Election is a serious business. If you are not ready to go through the whole work, you shouldn't bother to participate. It is not social media business. It's doing the groundwork and making sure that you have all your polling unit agents represented in every polling unit. You set up a situation room like we Nigeria Civil Society situation room, set up a situation room in Abuja, collecting results from all the observers in the 3 states. That's what a serious candidate should do. And as they are bringing the result, if there are concerns, like you can escalate, you have a team of people to escalate your concerns to INEC, to personnel, security personnel. Because you are the one to be listening to what all the result coming, all the incidences happening at different polling units. Where there are no incidences, you should praise them, and when there are, you should condemn it and escalate it so that the responsible, relevant authorities should take immediate action. Because if there are anything concerning police, we have police commission members in our situation room. We escalate it to them. They also actually address it immediately. So if you just come and become a social media tiger, it doesn't help your issue. What helps your issue is to have polling unit agents. You know the polling
Let me come to Victor. Victor, Omo in Ida there spoke about whipping up ethnic sentiment, one of the oldest tricks in the political playbook. And we're seeing that play out. And people have said usually doesn't end well, because just because you voted for your own person doesn't mean you will enjoy the dividends of democracy. But sometimes Nigerians do not care. They just want to have their own people there.
See, I find this very interesting, really. The politicians don't care. They do whatever it takes. The ethnic card and the religious card, depending on which at a particular point in time, they play up very, very well. There's a joke. It says, it is bad manners to talk while eating. What it simply means is, when the politicians gather and they're conspiring against the masses, everywhere is quiet. But the minute one of them feels shortchanged, he goes to his people and say, my people, you see what they are doing to you people? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. They don't want us to be on that table anymore. They have been cheating us. That's what they've been doing. So that's what they do. So you cannot, and I'll tell you why the ethnic card will play or sentiment will play very, very strongly now. I mean, the Igalas, if I may mention that ethnic group,
yes,
which is a dominant tribe. That's from the Kogi East.
Yeah, Kogi East.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are, when they were in Benue State, they were complaining about being marginalized.
True.
And then Kogi State was created. The same thing they complained about started playing out. Governor Audu was there, and if Governor Audu had remained and the unfortunate things that happened to you had not happened, they would have continued ruling. But as fate would have it, the Igbiras, as represented by Governor Yahya Bello, who ordinarily, if we were to look at by population, may never get a chance. You know, he got in there. But his rule, if he had been fair, and I dare say, if he had carried everyone along and not ruled like a lord of the manor, the Galas would probably have been a bit more considerate. The issue of rotation would have been playing out. But I'm afraid that right now, they want it desperately, and they will get it by whatever means necessary. I'm not about to predict the results of this election, but what I have learned very strongly is that when it comes to ethnic politics and power, one thing that happens is their senators may belong to different parties, but their traditional rulers will call them, and there are people, towns unions that will call them inside and say, look, it does not matter what party you belong to. It is our turn to rule. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. At that point, political parties take second stage, religion takes backstage, manifestos take backstage. What matters at that point is to grab power. So what you see playing out is a situation where, as one, the majority over the last 7 or 8 years have felt marginalized. They have been oppressed. by a minority, a leader from a minority group, and now for them it's like never again. That is the sentiment on the ground, and the people are desperate to take back power. And I'm afraid that if they take it back this time, if they do succeed, I mean, it's not going to come easy, because there's one, an incumbent political party, not necessarily governor, is not coming back, but that's a party on ground, both at the state and at the national level, which means that they will do whatever it takes to try and make sure that it remains with the party. But on the ground, even within the party, not everyone is happy with the outgoing governor. This is one thing that may work against that political party. And unfortunately, the party that would have been the strongest opposition, PDP, short of calling his action acting like a spoiled brat or something like that, from what she has said, frankly, when matters like this come, you saw the mature approach that Natasha used in her election. You don't complain. You can escalate it and all that, but you don't stay back. You go on, complete the process, and like Natasha, go to court and hope that justice will prevail.
Absolutely. Now, let's take the conversation back to Abuja. Maodi, let's talk about the days leading up to election in Imo State, which were filled with events, drama unfolding, the highlight of which, of course, was the beating of the NLC president, Joe Ajero, and following events, calls for strike action. It seemed as though industrial action took a political tone. How much do you think those events are going to impact or have impacted what we've seen today up until this time and what we will continue to see this weekend transpiring in Imo State?
Okay, I think that a very unfortunate and tragic situation that happened on the 1st of November, that when the Nigerian Labour Congress president was treated like a common criminal. That is very sad and very tragic. But I think also it has parted negatively, because it is one of the, apart from the lose of confidence in INEC, it's one of the strongest points that have kept people away from the polling units. And it's the people that are supposed to make a statement today, what they have been through. They, like Oru Zone, is only in few polling units. Oru Zone that has a lot of local government that actually has the number and that have been defining elections in Imo State. The same zone, there is nobody, there is only in few polling units that elections are happening in Oru Zone. The same Okigwe Zone, they're actually saying they are going to create polling units for Kigwe Zone in Owerri. And I'm sure that they have not thought it well, because if you create polling units in Owerri for Kigwe people, will you go to where they are hiding to bring them out to come to Owerri and vote? That is a conversation we need to interrogate. Because if we see results called Okigwe Zone polling units that happened in Owerri, the citizens will reject it, because such thing never happened. I think it parted negative, and it's so very sad and unfortunate that that happened, because the people who would have come out to express their frustration for the past, since January 2020, are actually staying at home. Because the Imo State, people came out in February this year. Multitudes of people came out to vote. They came out to vote, even with all the frustration and the disenfranchisement in March 2023. They also came out. But today, there are nobody coming out. It has impacted negatively, and it's a sad commentary on what has happened to Imo State. This is an opportunity for people to say, we have lost so much, we are taking back our state. But that's not what we are going to see, because the people are, instead of coming out to vote, are sitting comfortable at home, because they have been oppressed, defeated, and very angry with the umpire that they have no faith in, and also with their own son that is a serious stakeholder in a national scheme of things that have been treated very badly. And the people are actually, because when you look at it very well, it is Owerri zone where Joe Ajiolo came from. That's the only zone that are voting. Because Ru zone or Kiwe zone, nothing is happening there. And the people are not coming out, even in Owerri zone, to cast their vote and decide this election. It is sad. It's very unfortunate.
All right, let's Victor here in the studio here with me in Lagos. Let's turn our attention to Bayelsa State. One of the states with the fewest local governments, but very, very vast because of the water bodies and the rest of them, and how it's actually spread apart. And the major political parties, Timi Silva, former Minister of State for Petroleum, and also the incumbent talking about Duya Diri. These are men that have actually been in the government house at one point in time or the other. One is actually there as we speak right now. And some are saying this is too close to call.
Bayelsa is traditionally PDP. You're right, it's going to be a rather close one, but there are a lot of factors that are going to be considered here. I do not think personally that Timi Silva, other than the fact that he got a federal appointment, has impacted or did impact. It was an opportunity. That's a mistake a lot of politicians made. While he was Minister of Petroleum, the question is how much impact did he make in that, within that environment, particularly if you have it in mind that you're coming back, to run for governorship. And we saw a few hiccups along the way too, with the court proceedings and all that. Duoye would have the benefit of, previous governors and other local politicians fighting for him. Politically, he may not be as astute as Timi Priye, but as tough as it may be, I doubt that there will be an upset in that state.
Because, you'd have heard, in the run-up to this election, several calls about federal might, the federal might, and
yes,
the concern of the use of federal might, as much as this is a PDP stronghold. There is that concern. So you don't feel that will play into Timi Silva's favor in any way at all?
I'm not too convinced about that, because you see, you might talk about federal might. Yes, it's an argument that might, but federal might will work where you have a chance. In the case of Bayelsa, it's difficult. There are certain states that it's like Akwa Ibom. In spite of the popularity and the influence of the Senate president, and even while he was in government in PDP, he did make impact in the state. The minute he moved out, well, of course, it could remain relevant in his senatorial district, but as a state generally, the people are voting one way. It's not to say that things cannot change. The arguments that have been brought sometimes, particularly in the Southeast, where people bring the argument and say, look, the reason you're not benefiting is that you're not in the center. You need to be in the center.
Cross River, for example.
Exactly, in order to benefit. But at the end of the day, look at Cross River that you talked about. When the governor, if we use telecom language, ported, you want to ask yourself, what real benefits did he bring to them? So the people have always voted one way, and that's the way they go, usually and traditionally. There are upsets. For that upset to happen, then it has to be someone who has been in the system before, is very well liked, and if he moves over, it has to be extremely, popular and influential. Because in that case, you're going to be moving people from their traditional beliefs and voting patterns and all that. It will take a lot. I doubt that there will be an upset in Bayelsa.
All right, let's cross over to Abuja, Uma, I would like to hear from you. What do you make of the reservations that the governor, Duya Duris, made about what happened in Brass? We know elections are being held in Ekeremo, Nembe, Sagbama, Southern Ijo, and not forgetting Yenegoa. But he wasn't happy with how things played out in Brass. What do you make of that, and what are we hearing from your own end?
Okay, I actually when Victor was talking, I was smiling here. But we are hearing that security personnel were escorting thugs to carry election materials in Brass, in Southern Ijo, and they are destroying election materials and carrying them. So if the security people are working for APC candidates, then there is a federal match there already. So it's not as easy as Victor is actually trying to make us believe. So many things are happening in just South, in Keremo, in Brass, where election materials are taken, people are beaten up. The PDP chairman of Brass have been beaten to like a common criminal. So what I'm actually saying is that I think there is federal might playing out in Bayelsa, but the people are also determined. I think it was a fight between the people and the riverine areas and the security personnel. Whatever happens, I think there is federal might going on in Bayelsa.
All right.
Right. And Dr. Okhai, Hope Uzodinma, APC candidate for Imo State, came fourth in the last election before going through the court process and emerging the governor. These dynamics, I keep going back to the law of unintended consequences because we have to look at history to understand how we got to where we are and why things happen the way they do. Imo State, yet again, what's your feel of the electorate there? Do you think they generally feel that they have the power and the authority to be able to make a difference and to have their selected governor, become the governor without going through court processes that might change things and question the process for them? Very briefly, please.
Yeah, that's a very good question. My worry about Imo State is the sentiments on the streets ordinarily is not in favor of the governor, but neither was it in favor of the governor during the last election, and yet it was returned. So the governor is using state apparatus and is oppressing the people, using the police, using money and everything. It's a tough battle. The opponents he's facing now are really, 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 they know themselves, let me put it that way, and they're very formidable. But my worry is the fact that I think that the federal government is very much interested in that state, and that might give him that slight edge. But the sentiments on the ground don't favor him.